Hey, what's up? Greetings, fam. Welcome to another episode of Spirit in the Material World. I'm your host, Janna Zinzi, also known as Jazz. And I'm so excited today to have this beautiful, magical being, my special guest, Jameelah Nuriddin, also known as Jameelah Creates, and she is an integrative somatic specialist, a multi-certified energy worker, and I've seen her in action. So she specializes in Kundalini Activation. We're going to talk more about that. So, because that's juicy stuff. Also, Satnam Rasayan and Transcendental Meditation. She has sat with Aboriginal energy workers from West Africa, Yoruba culture, and traditional Nankari healers, trying to get my pronunciation properly done. And what's one of the really coolest things I've seen her grow in this space is that she's one of the few hundred people in the world to be a certified Kundalini activation facilitator and was taught to transmit raw Kundalini life force energy directly from the creator of CAP, and that's the Kundalini activation process. She has a unique background in performing arts, Satnam Rasayan, breathwork, trauma healing, and West African Yoruba spirituality, which she blends to create a powerful alchemy of grounding and healing energy. And this really helps her connect her clients to their innate divinity and inner wisdom. And it's been a pleasure and a blessing to be in those spaces with her. So welcome, Jameelah.
Hello, welcome, welcome. Thank you for that beautiful welcome.
Yes, yes. I'm so excited you're here. I really just want to dive in with you. We have such a shared love of travel and spirituality, and we go deep when it comes into talking about, you know, ancestors, right? And how we are brought to the work and the places that we are. So if you can share a bit about your journey to CAP and like what is Kundalini activation energy? How did you even get put on to this practice?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. What a great question to start with. I think I found Kundalini activation in the same way a lot of people find their healing modalities, just through a need to heal my own line, to heal my own personal growth and development and wellness journey. And also becoming aware of the intergenerational trauma that lived inside of my body, and continues to, if I'm honest. And kind of tending to that, I started to do a lot of different things. I think yoga was the first gateway drug into spirituality. I remember getting my first certification at 19 when I was still going to school, and like that Shiva Ray DVD, man, it really took me deep. Like it was just I was just doing yoga all the time. I really started having these spiritual experiences. Then I really got into meditation, and that took me to all these different heights and all these different altered states. I started to really feel connected to my ancestors and like my intuition. But it really wasn't until I started doing breath work training. I feel like did a lot of other things in between, but I feel like breath work started to get really non-dual states. It started to get really kind of psychedelic experiences. I did a lot of plant medicine as well, or a fair amount. Sat with grandmother Aya 5 or 6 times, maybe 7 times. Psilocybin was a big part of my journey of just unlocking my connection with nature and starting to see nature around me as what it is, which is alive. That shaped me so deeply. But with Kundalini activation, it was like a whole nother level. Okay. I was also got into Kundalini yoga before that. So I love Kundalini energy. Always felt like Kundalini yoga was like the energetic version of like hatha yoga. It was like it's the energy version. You have kind of more intense versions, and then you have like Iyengar, which is about holding the long poses, and Bikram, that's kind of about this system of like wringing out the body. But I felt like Kundalini yoga was all about your energetic body, and it's really ancient. It's really beautiful. But I felt like Kundalini activation was almost like just it was like they're in the middle of a Kundalini yoga class. There'll be these moments or these like little pockets of time where you hit this like altered state where things are really changing on a like a metaphysical level in your body and your mind and your spirit. But it felt like Kundalini activation was just that part. Because the Kundalini yoga or all the other different ways I've experienced it, it's like there's a physical aspect of like tiring out the body, usually, tiring out the mind, even. And it's like after this process of like wearing myself out, then these kind of states come. But Kundalini activation just asks you to just lay back, surrender, and just lay back into those states, relax into those states, which is a different way of approaching those states. And so, very quickly, because we're in a state of surrender with this work, I started to really get messages and downloads from my ancestral line. And now you and I can go round and round all day about the ancestors, and I think that we will. But I also just want to preface it for the non-woo that I think there's many different words for this energy. I think, ancestors, another word for it, people talk about guardian angels or angelic beings. I think that obviously they can be different, but it's still like a guiding force that knows more than you do that can shape your life and will listen if you slow down enough to hear it. You can talk about, the animal world or nature guiding you in that way. Same thing, something that knows more than you do that might be guiding you if you slow down enough to listen. And if you really just need to take a full step out of it entirely, I think we can talk about the subconscious mind, something that knows more than your little tiny consciousness. We know that that's there. It's running 95% of the show, in fact, and it knows more than you do, and it will guide you if you slow down and listen. It's the same kind of rules apply where if you trust, if you let go, if you stop trying to control every minute of your life, something more ancient and more beautiful can step forward, and it will lead you on a path that you may not expect, but that actually holds medicine for you. And that's what I really discovered with the Kundalini activation. Yeah.
Wow. It feels really important in this time, that piece about slowing down. I've talked about this a lot. You and I have had conversations, but also in other episodes um, about that need for slowdown and how, particularly, I would say being in the United States, but I think also being someone from the United States that works with folks in the United States, and then thinking even more layered of like Black and brown folks, Black and brown women, Black women, that need to slow down and not having that permission. So I'm wondering, as you were talking, I got to see, folks don't know, but you and I were roommates for a minute in Costa Rica together in the Caribbean. And that
Smooth.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Almost, yeah. Almost four
such a
years
special
ago.
time.
Yes, yes.
I cannot believe that. That blows my mind that that was that long ago.
All right.
Um, so you didn't necessarily like, this is something when you were living in the States that you kind of flirted with, or like, took your studies, did studies.
Yeah.
But do you think that moving to Costa Rica or moving outside of a US context
Yes.
helped you develop your practice, and more so, just not just that, your leadership in this space?
For sure. What had happened was I started taking I was as a student of this energy first for many years. And the more that I did the sessions, I was like pretty much faithful every week. I needed it every week. I was coming from the entertainment industry and I had a very masculine job. A lot of entertainment is very like go, 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 no time for sleep, no time for even politeness, kind of energy. And you're not a human being, you're a thing. Time is of the like it's very patriarchal, very capitalistic, very like it's not really tending to nervous systems at all, right? The way that a lot of traditional, that's not the way my film sets are now, but it was something I had to learn and almost decolonize out of my artistic practices. But at the time I was working in these hyper like masculine industry, and my whole right side was locked up. My masculine side, my head frozen shoulder on my right side. I had TMJ on my right jaw from not speaking my truth. Like everything was just like locked up and closed. And so when I found, Kundalini activation as a student, I remember not knowing what the hell it was. Most people don't. It can't really be explained. You have to experience it. And I remember reading it and being like, I like Kundalini energy. I'm going to this. Sounds good. And I remember laying down and not knowing what to expect. But then all of a sudden, my body's starting to like move on its own. And I noticed that my jaw started vibrating faster than I could ever consciously move it. It was moving so quickly. And my shoulder was doing these like kind of long, big, slow, just wanted to move that way. And I had to like surrender and just let it do. And I felt very healed after the session. Like I felt physically better. There was emotional releases, there was laughter, there was crying, all kinds of stuff happens. It's really beautiful. And it wasn't until like a few weeks later I was going to physical therapy for something else, and they hooked me up to this like electrolysis machine, and they started putting mild currents through my through that part of the body, and it started to vibrate in the exact same speed that my jaw was doing in the session. And I was like, oh, Lord, look, my body was just doing that because it knew to do that in it was giving me, it's almost like it gives you what you need. So through my own personal practice, I started to develop a strong relationship with my body, my ancestors. I started to be able to have like ask questions and receive answers, sort of receive guidance, whether I wanted it or not, if that makes sense. Like just started to be told and led what to do. And at first when it would happen, I wouldn't always trust it. And then I would do the thing against my intuition, and then that made logical sense. And then it would always like not work out. And I look back, I'd be like, oh, I should have listened to my intuition.
Right,
So
you told me.
the process, sometimes even still to this day, because it's layers, it goes deeper and deeper. And there's a
Always.
part that you'll trust, and then there's another part that you're like, oh, but I can't trust it with that. Surely I can trust it with my living situation. I can trust it with this cup of coffee or like who to go on a date with, but I can't trust it with something like to quit my job or do this or that, right? So you have these like that's why it keeps going. But I started to really listen and just like gamble. It felt like gambling. It felt like just stepping out on faith, just like risking it all, like listening. And smaller at first, then larger and larger things. And then when they told me, like, they got the very clear download to go to not just Costa Rica, but to go to Puerto Viejo, where I met you, Janna. And
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about it. I had to look it up. I'm like, oh, so this is like the black place in in Costa Rica. Good, that makes sense. But like, I still didn't understand why until I got here, and I had to just like pack up all my stuff and like sell my, like possessions, give things away, buy a kind of a one-way plane ticket, and just step out on the faith. And like literally, I was like, this is crazy. I can't even tell people that I'm doing this because so many people in my life would like, not understand or shun me. But I told people who I needed to tell, and I just was like, listen, if it doesn't work out, I did have like a slight black backup plan. I was like, if it doesn't work out, I'll go to Ghana. There's this trip to Ghana that people were going, like some group was doing. And I was like, if I hate it in 6 weeks, I'll go to Ghana. And if I don't like Ghana, I know I've been to Bali before. I'll go to Bali. Like I like Bali. I was in Bali a long time ago. I don't even know if I can still handle Bali. It sounds like it's changed a lot.
It's a lot.
Right. But anyway, I did that. I stepped out and I went. And yeah, within 2 days of being in Porto, I was like, oh, bitch, you're going to be here for a minute. You're going to be here for a couple of years. Okay. All right. Because it was like a place where I could heal. And from the
Mm.
moment I got there, like the amount of rest I was able to give myself in a way that I couldn't give myself in LA, in a way that my nervous system simply could not downshift into in LA. It just could not. The threshold is just far too high. The median state of anxiety level is just at a certain at a certain tip, like at a
Yes,
certain
frequency.
like, frequency. And I'd say in
Hmm.
the States in general, but especially some of the big
For sure.
cities like LA, New York, where there's just like this
Yep.
low level of anxiety. I remember I used to wake up every day pretty much in LA, like with a start, like I was late. You know what I mean? Like even on my day off,
Yes.
like like this feeling of being behind on this hamster wheel. And I remember, like within the first couple of weeks of being in Porto, waking up and like crying from gratitude because I would wake up so gently with the birds and the howler monkeys and the like this like just the aliveness, and it'd be so gentle and the light would be pouring in, and I didn't have anywhere to be right away, and I would just well up with tears for so many days because I was just like, this is what it feels like to wake up in a peaceful state. And it was just something that I didn't have access to really since I was a kid, of just like feeling free, like truly free. I think especially for Black Americans, getting out of America is a necessity not that there isn't racism and prejudice and colorism and other things in other places that, it's universe, it's everywhere, sadly, at this point on
Sure.
the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that the flavor of racism be different in different places. And like I always say, like there's racism here in Costa Rica, but I'm just not allergic to it yet. Like I'm like, it's not too racist. Oh, look at the little color. It's like, oh, like it just doesn't bother me. It doesn't get up under my skin in the way because it's new. It's kind of just fascinating. It's interesting.
Mm.
It's not the 500,000th, drop of water on this one spot that's like sending me insane. It's not that. And so it's just a different way of being. And the moment I came, I see why my ancestors told me to come. I manifested 10K to do this training because it's about a 10, it's a five-figure training to get certified in Kundalini activation, no matter how you slice it, pretty much, because it's such a rare model. There's so few people that can kind of transmit this and teach others that, yeah, I mean, it's increasing every day. I think more and more people are able to hold the field because we as a people are evolving. But back at the time that I did it, yeah, it was and I remember seeing the price of the training and thinking like, shit, maybe in my 60s I can afford some, like when I'm retired, or I put it off as like not possible. But then right when I moved, everything opened up. Like I just manifested the income, the jobs that I needed that were remote, like everything just boop, 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 boop. Because when you listen, you're not alone. That's all I can say. Like you're not, it's like something is working behind the scenes, helping things out. And you just have to be able to recognize where in your body your intuition is communicating with you and be able to tell the difference between your intuition and your fear-based thoughts and your habituated way of thinking. Sometimes people be mistaking those things. I
Yes.
used to. But yeah, and I can't tell you I can't give you the prescription that you want me to give you for that right now, since people who are listening are gonna go like, oh, what is it? It's a little bit,
Right.
it's a little bit more intuitive than that because it's unique in each person. But I can give you some guidelines that really helped me. But yeah,
Yeah, please
how I,
do.
yeah,
I think too, it really is this ongoing journey of the more that you get to know yourself, the more you're in tune with like what is anxious thinking or
yeah,
what is what is that intuition, what is ancestral messaging, what is divine messaging from, God or angels, wherever,
100%.
whatever, or subconscious, as you
Hmm.
said, versus those fear based, and then thus like the ego trying to protect
Yes,
you
yes, and belief
from
system. Yeah,
change or
yeah,
from stepping out on faith or stepping into something new. And so yeah, I'd love to know like what some of those
yeah.
ways in which that you guide folks, and also how breath work has
Hmm.
helped you make those distinctions.
Hmm. Yeah, breath work came before Kundalini activation in my journey. I got certified with Sadea Fox. Anybody knows? Shout out to Sadea. She does a beautiful women of people of color, training and breath work, and it was really beautiful for me. It's where they really go hand in hand for me. I rarely do lead breath work now because I'm just so in love with Kundalini activation. I feel like it holds within it the seeds of more
Mm.
potential. But I think
So
breath work,
what's
yeah.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, well, what's the difference then? I thought like breathwork was a
Breath
part
work.
of
So no,
Kundalini
so yeah, so
activation.
breath work is a pranic energy. Breath work uses pranic energy,
Hmm.
which is breath, or life force in some way. Pranic energy is a part of Kundalini energy, but Kundalini energy is a bit more. Kundalini energy also messes with or not messes, it affects your electromagnetic field. There's more science actually behind Kundalini energy because people are starting to measure it. They call it in science, they call it the morphogenetic field, which part of me is like, shut up, science. Shut up. Like you over here, just shut up. But at the same time, come on, do your little research.
Give
Because
us.
it's like it's another way of looking at it. But yeah, they call it the morphogenetic field. I always make the joke that science is like the last to the party, then the loudest in the room. So because it just there gets so like nerdy and but I like evidence-based research. Like that's the thing. I geek out over this stuff. So I'm like, I do
Yes.
want it, but just acknowledge that there were people saying this, tens of thousands of years ago, for a long time, and everyone thought it was bullshit until like very,
Hmm.
very recently with somatic therapy and now quantum, theory and things
Physics.
coming in and
Uh-huh.
calling it all out. Like, oh, okay, it's real, okay. And I'm just like, all right, that's why I get a little frustrated. But at the same time, I'm happy because I feel like when we were kids, like science and spirituality did not go together. And now they go
No.
together. They like friends. They're like
Yes.
skipping down the street.
Yes.
You know, they got each other's back.
Totally.
I'm like, this is cool.
And I think really like, I don't know about you, but for a long time I was always the woo-woo weirdo,
Yes.
of like on so many different levels.
Right.
Like my approach to feminism was always, or not always, but really in my 20s was around goddess energy and like
Yes.
spirituality,
Yes.
and divine feminine was my understanding, or kind of my grounding in how I would approach feminism or think about feminism or think about
Hmm.
wellness. Like to me, I'm like, theory, cool. All right. Like I can, connect with the academic piece of it, but like what really was going to get me invested in it was like, I want to know about these goddesses and like their energy and those stories and, quantum theory, quantum physics, my
Yeah.
thoughts. So it's funny though. And also like bringing ancestors in and bringing, these more kind of non-tangible
Hmm.
but deep knowing
Yep.
into spaces. And so I really appreciate now that I think there's more of an appreciation and
Absolutely.
more of a reclamation, I would
Yes.
say, especially around, with Black women, with women of
Yes.
color, with, you know, um, queer and non-binary and trans folks really like reconnecting with those things that we knew
Yes.
but have been told like
Yeah.
that's crazy, that's silly, like you don't have evidence of that,
No.
like where's the data? I'm like,
Sure. For sure.
you know
And killed for. I mean, made fun of and killed for. Like that, we forget. Like
that part.
100 years ago, not even, maybe even 50 years ago, like you liable to be, stoned to death, things like that for saying some and doing some of these things. And yes, we're just really remembering who we are. Like I think that's what the goddess energy allows us to do. Is it's like how world
Hmm.
used to be before the patriarchy, because we think that like that's the only way that life was, and it's like no, there was whole ass
Right.
societies, whole ass civilizations before the patriarchy, before there was even a concept of race, before there was racism. There was
Exactly.
there's black people going around, sharing knowledge, sharing mathematics and astrology,
Yes.
astronomy, and and we forget all of this. Like that, it's
Yes.
not taught. I mean, it's not in the popular vernacular of
Of
knowing, and so
course.
people just kind of get pigeonholed in just what is right now or what recently was. And
Hmm.
no, it's like we are these ancient beings. We have connection to the stars, and our like literally,
Yes.
and so it gets really deep when you start to like recall that, and it puts it all in perspective, and it does give a sense of like ownership and autonomy and power and self-love and self-awareness that I think certain powers that have been preying on people basically financially the last 500 years don't want people to feel. You're a
Of
large
course
part of the
not.
control if you feel like you're part of the stars. Like they want you to.
That's exactly, or connected to, Orisha,
Oh
right? Or
shoot,
like
yeah.
ancient,
That money's
right?
out.
Ancient
Like, yeah.
African spirituality. And then on top of it, to, or even more like recently, the way that voodoo is
Yeah.
demonized because of the power of that in terms of revolution, right?
Yeah.
The Haitian Revolution, in terms of overthrowing white
Oof.
supremacy.
Oof.
And, you know, it's all connected of that it's all connected that we have been
Yes.
disconnected
Yes.
and also, to your point, demonized. And there's places to this day
What is that?
with across the diaspora where you can be,
Shame.
criminalized. Yes, like literally
By
thrown
our
in
own
jail,
people.
arrested.
By our own people. That's what's messed up. They don't have to do it anymore. They don't even have to
No,
perpetuate it anymore. One of my
no.
favorite people I work with, her name's Joyelle Arvella. She's an incredible doula. Everyone should look her up. She says the most beautiful thing. She goes, if people of color, which I'll just call the global majority, wake up tomorrow, because we wake up tomorrow and
Ashe.
stop perpetuating white supremacy, it would end. If just we stop perpetuating white supremacy, it would end. And so when
Yes.
I kind of realized that, this probably really hit me like maybe sadly like 2019. I think I heard that 2018, somewhere in there. I was like full stop. I shifted from trying to prove my humanity and prove because I had a lot of like perfectionism. I was straight A honor roll, graduated high school with a 4.2. You know the story, right? Like
Yes.
had the pressed hair, the long pressed, like
Relaxer.
Alaska, some stuff from Atlanta. We had that. It was like a status thing, and like I've been told you better go to college. You better. My parents fought like hell. We were first generation college students. They were like, you're gonna go to college. You're gonna do this. You're gonna break out. You know, all this stuff. You're gonna do stuff that me and your mom couldn't do. Me and your dad couldn't do. And I'm really grateful for that. But it was still limited because it was still playing in somebody else's game, essentially. In this
Hmm.
game where you have to get your proximity to whiteness determines your value. And when I kind of divorced that idea many decades later, with reaching, you know, whatever height you think you want, whatever assimilation you think you is going to protect you, it doesn't. And there's nothing at the end of that fucking rainbow. You know what I mean? There's nothing there. You get there, there's
Yes.
nothing there, and you're left with nothing. You're left with nothing to either keep up the facade or to really come home to yourself. And I chose to come home to myself, and I started to realize, like, oh, this is all just to get us to disconnect. There's a reason why we can have Coco, which I love that movie, that Pixar film Coco, all about
S-
Mexican, you know,
So
ancestral
beautiful.
wisdom. So beautiful. Cry every time. Love it. We can have
Yep.
Mulan that talks about Chinese ancestry and their connection to their ancestors and the whole thing and that. Beautiful. Wonderful. But anytime we come anywhere near African spirituality, it is demonized. It's demonic. It's scary. It's woo. The,
Like Tiana.
the faces, just right. Even in our own movies, the faces are
Hmm.
distorted. They're up to no good. The characters are all shady. That's
Shadow
not
Man.
that's not a coincidence, boo boos. That is not a coincidence because we are the most powerful. We have the oldest religion on earth. Yoruba is the oldest
Exactly.
recorded religion. It's where all other religions stem from. You can see it. If you study it at all, you will see it. And they had to shut that all the way down in order to try to
Hmm.
commodify, maybe even effectively commodify the whole continent, including its people and resources. They had to take us, they had to rob us, make us afraid of our own spirituality, run the other direction, let alone sit and be with ourselves and actually connect with our
Yes.
community. So when you connect back to it, it's a very powerful, potent thing. And it's like the ancestors are ready, whatever part of it, whatever you want to call it, it's ready for us just to wake up just a little bit, just slide up in our DMs just a little bit and be like, hey, baby, I'm gonna need you to get this together so we can help humanity. Because if there's gonna be a
Ashe.
savior for humanity, if there's gonna be any sort of saving of the human race, I believe it's going to come from the global south. It's going to come from the global majority, from our oppressed practices, because you know it hasn't worked. Like we did that. We did the industrial revolution to the fullest. We are in a super in a post. What is it? Fourth or fifth wave capitalism. We
Yes.
we followed that to the end of the rainbow too, and they ain't shit on that side either. You have
And still following.
and still following. You can
Like,
have all of the stuff and still be miserable. In fact, we all know people who, it's so common, we all know people who have it all and have nothing. They're morally bereft, right?
yes.
And so, yeah,
Yes.
we have to check that.
Yes. No, I mean, as a IFA practitioner, I'm feeling everything that you're saying and grateful to be reconnected with that and feeling very very deeply how much of a healing force it has been for me, and also really excited by people's, like, especially, black folks, black and brown people's interest and, like, reclamation in some ways, right? Tiptoeing in whatever fashion, whatever ways,
Hmm.
are accessible and make sense. And so feeling really grateful for that, and that is that power. The more that folks tap into that, the more that we tap into that, the more power is available, the more healing we can do on a communal level,
Hmm.
um, and societally, like starting within,
Hmm.
but also how we are in community with each other.
Yeah.
um, I think can really be influenced by Ifa, traditional
Yeah.
African spiritualities, across the diaspora.
Right.
So
So,
I'm feeling you on that. And so
mhm.
to bring it back to Kundalini activation,
Yes.
how does that fit into, how have you, like, merged
Yeah.
or, brought in different pieces of, like, Yoruba spirituality,
Mhm.
this, you know, I'm assuming, is it Buddhist meditation practices
Mhm. Some of them.
with Kundalini? Like,
Well, yeah.
how does that all play together?
Well, it plays together really nicely because Kundalini is so old, it predates written language. So it
Mm,
predates concepts of Buddhism, it predates concepts of really groups of people that like it's before we have time recorded, right? So the Ashe, if you're familiar with Ashe and
Of
West
course.
African, right? I know you are for sure. It's the exact same. That is also Kundalini energy. You're talking about Ashe. We're talking about Chi from Chinese medicine. Chi, the energy that moves through all living things. That is also Kundalini energy, right? We have the science catching up with the morphogenetic field, morphogenesis. We got all the different ways to say it. Again, pranic energy in some Southeast Asian places, like that's what they call it. It's all the same. It has the same root. You're really just starting to get into
Hmm.
certain definitions and certain doctrines, but really it's an intelligent life force that exists inside of us and all around us and all living things. It connects all living things and it will guide us. So it already wants to go together. Because of my background in Yoruba spirituality, I naturally have a transmission when I hold the field of Kundalini energy that people come here in Costa Rica to come and lay down. They lay down on a yoga mat. I play some music. It's like a group of, anywhere from 8 to 15 people. And then they just start to feel. I go around, I touch certain chakra points, I touch certain meridian energy centers. It's all intuitive. I'm also just surrendering. And people start to feel things. People start to see things. They start to release emotion. They start to move their body with what I call pre-thought movement. It's like your mind catches up to the fact that your body is moving, and then you just don't stop it. You don't judge. You don't bring the monkey mind into it. You just allow. And then before you know it, you're purging deep emotions, childhood wounds, the ancestral wounds, all kinds of things. You're receiving gifts in that same way too from the ancestors, from your line, from your, genetic code, all kinds of really, it's almost like the roulette of healing modalities can all happen in a Kundalini activation. I think that's why I love it so much. It's different in each and every person that does it. It does not show up the same in any single like no two people experience it the same. And then within each individual person's journey, no two sessions are the same.
Hmm.
So it becomes very difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is. And of course, with things that are this deep and this ancient and this old, the second you start to ascribe words to it, it becomes untrue, right? Like it's true in that exact moment, maybe. And then from then on, it's alive. It's alive. It's basically life force. It's your body's ability to heal itself, and it wants to. It will if you just get up out the way. It naturally wants to. You just need to stop overwhelming yourself with incessant thinking and worry and stress on the body. If you just stop that for a little bit, it's you. That's the thing. People always like to look at me at the end of a session, or they like to look at the facilitators and be like, oh, you're magic. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. You're this and that. And it's like, yeah, bitch, okay. I am magic. I know I'm magic. It's true. But that shit, that was you. That was you.
Hmm.
I set the table. That's it. I put some nice flowers in a vase. I got you here. I got you to turn off your phone, be away from your phone for
That
a
part.
minute. Like I got you to lay down. Like I did it. I did some stuff. But sure, the healing, that's your own body's natural healing capacity that we all share. That is the divinity in you. That is the godlike nature in you that steps forward and aligns your shit. And when you start doing it all the time or just like frequently on a semi-frequent basis, it's like all things with repetition, like that bandwidth expands, like your capacity to hold the truth of you thickens. And before you know it, things that used to throw you for a loop in your day that would have you ups and downs and highs and lows and screaming and worrying, you're like solid, like a mountain. You're just like boom, like things happen, but you don't lose your sense of self. Your capacity, your window of capacity widens, thickens. Your ability to remain in Vegas nerve terms and polyvagal theory terms, ventral vagal a lot easier. You're able to stay in a vibration of safety and connectivity. That's what ventral vagal means. It's safety and connection versus we talk about, fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system, fight,
Right.
freeze, fawn, all that. That's that has a time and a place. I'm not saying we don't ever want to. We need those states too. There's certainly a time you need to fight or flee, but we
For
get
sure.
almost stuck in that gear like a car. We are stuck in that gear. We don't know how to downshift into rest and digest and parasympathetic, where we actually alchemize what goes through in the day and grow and learn. That's what is digestion and rest if not like kind of learning and integrating on a deep level? Like we need those things. And that's why people who really don't ever turn off, they have digestion issues. If you have trouble sleeping, you have digestion issues, you are disconnected from your parasympathetic nervous system. I can pretty much guarantee. Like, and
That
so,
tracks.
right? Like, right?
Legit.
And it means you
I've
right? Go ahead. What do you
I've
finish?
been there. No, I was just
Me
saying, like,
too.
for me, that's the digestion stuff I know has been linked
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
parasympathetic
Yeah.
nervous system reset,
Yeah.
vagus nerve,
All that.
and trying to do those resets. Like I'll listen to, certain sound bats and frequencies
Yep, those
at
help.
night.
Binaural beats. Yeah. That's how I
At
started doing it.
night.
Yeah. I started doing it that way too, like externalize. This process with Kundalini activation, it's almost like it happens from the inside of you outward versus putting on
Yes.
headphones and things that like kind of come inward. And they both are great and should do both at the same time if but that
That
inward shift is really, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. So tell me more about how lead groups or how you practice with folks. What does that look
Yeah,
like in terms of your sessions? Do
sure.
you do them online? Do
Yes.
people, I
I
know you
do
do
do them.
stuff in Costa Rica too, but
Yeah, I live in Costa Rica,
um,
so I do my live sessions here when I travel. I usually try to sneak a session wherever I travel, just because there's so few people who hold this field, especially melanated. We're literally like the most rarest unicorns. I found I was just at like a gathering, I think, a couple nights ago, and someone told me I was like, oh, I very rarely bring up what I do ever, really, because it's something that people need to like be led towards such a
mm,
big decision kind of on a spiritual level in a sense because it'll take you places that that you need to be ready to go to. And somebody somehow I just knew to mention to this person. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And she was like, I know. She was like, the reason I'm here in Port though is because I saw that there was a Kundalini activation facilitator here, and I literally came to Porto so I could take one of your sessions. And so that's why I was just when that I mean, there's been a couple of times that people have said that they've traveled, to different countries in order just to come and receive. And I was like, I need to do this anywhere I go. I feel like I want to sprinkle it a little bit because it's not everybody has a facilitator that lives close to them. I mean, you may, and that's great, but also each facilitator is different, and I have that West African vibe to me. So what I
mhm,
do that looks like how I integrate, my background into what I do is I really cleanse the space before anyone arrives. As I arrive, I'm really going in with the different herbs, the different smells, the different um, to ground the space, to protect the space. You're in a vulnerable place when you go into the states of consciousness. So you want someone there who has some spiritual know-how to make sure
mm.
that the energy, but that the vibration stays high. Usually people who do this work are natural protectors, even if they don't know how they're doing it. But it's also nice when someone intentionally comes in with things and I intentionally ask for support, even from my team of like, let's do this. Um, and so hold on, let me I don't know, this thing just moved a little bit. My phone, my mama was calling. My mama was calling. She knows, she be
Oh,
knowing.
hi, mom.
She knows, she knows. And then the other thing I do, so I have my maternal grandmother on my mom's side is probably the most lucky, fortunate, blessing, pure energy that I've ever known on my like just beautiful. And she is no longer earthside, and her transition was one of the most powerful grief portals I've ever been in. It was like excruciating pain for like 15 seconds when I first heard, and then completely like this luck and like love and this abundance of connection to like just what it is to like all that it is to have a grandmother's love. And so
Mm.
I bring her as her energy. I'll bring like this flower that we all wore at her going away, her farewell, and I bring her energy into the space. And I also I end always with this beautiful prayer to your ori, your crown
Uh-huh.
chakra, because there's so much energy comes in through the crown with Kundalini activation. It's a descending energy. So very different from a Kundalini awakening. Sometimes people get those two things confused. An
Yeah.
awakening is not something anyone, first of all, can guarantee. If someone tells you they can guarantee you a Kundalini awakening, run away because they are lying. A Kundalini
Okay.
awakening is something that is takes several generations, several lifetimes, to, it's a whole thing. And it is a dormant energy at the base of your spine that goes upwards and opens out through a crown of light through your, head. So much goes into that. Again, it's a long process. And activation is almost like a massage in that direction. It's really helpful for people who are in the middle of a Kundalini awakening. Some of those symptoms can be kind of difficult, the waking up in the middle of the night, the shaking, some of the visions. And so having Kundalini activation can really soothe that process. It also can encourage that process to happen if it's kind of close to happening. It can kind of prepare your body for that. It kind of clears out the channels. And so it's a descending energy downward. That's what makes it safe. You don't ever want anyone to pop your Kundalini up out you. No, no, no. You want to, but going downward is really actually, it's going to it's going to clear out stuff. So that's why in a Kundalini activation session, sometimes you will have emotional catharsis. You'll just, all of a sudden, you'll hit a pocket and you'll start crying or shaking with fear or laughing hysterically, and you won't know why. And I always tell clients, you don't need to know why. In fact, the story is usually your egoic mind's way of trying to gain control of the situation. You don't want to be thinking like where it's coming from. You want to just be present with whatever you're feeling fully and allow it to move. And in somatic therapy, I have a lot of this beautiful somatic background. That's just, again, this thwarted instinct, these stuck cycles, these habituated patterns, these neurological pathways, right? Like we all have these ways of being where sometimes it's like emotions get caught in these loops. We get caught in these
Yes.
loops. That's why we keep creating these same relationship patterns and these same, wow, this always happens. It's you. You're creating
Right.
because you want to finally address it. You want to finally slay the dragon. You want to finally feel the feelings that you maybe weren't able to safely feel back when it first happened. Often in your developmental years in childhood is where a lot of these things stem from. Not always. Sometimes we have acute trauma that can lodge as well. But you want to get to a place where you're clearing out these older patterns, because then if you can get to a place where when trauma comes in the body, because trauma is always going to come in, that's what is to be alive, is to sometimes be overwhelmed. I like to think of trauma, there's a lot of different definitions for it, but I like to think of it, my favorite definition is from this wonderful sister named Kai Chung Tam, someone I just look up to immeasurably. And she always says trauma is too much too soon or too little for too long.
Mm.
So it's kind of when your system is overloaded, you can't take in any new information. It kind of goes back to that parasympathetic. Can you integrate? Can you digest? If you can't integrate, then you can't take in anything new. Anything that comes in new is just going to slide up. You know what I mean? It can't sink in.
Right.
And so that's where you get trapped, you get stuck because you don't know that you're safe anymore. And that's why in extreme cases of trauma, like CPTSD, which most of us think trauma just is post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a very extreme version of it. We all live with some type of trauma. But yeah, those extreme cases, they literally can't stop. They still think they're in the war zone. They can't acknowledge the fact that they're now safe because they can't take in that new information, because they're still grappling with what they couldn't grapple with in the moment. And so we want to eventually get to a place where the body can feel what it needs to feel to let that go. And you don't have to do it alone. You can literally come and I can help you do it. I literally can, literally I'm physically there to touch your body in certain places. And it just so happens that people say, you touch in this spot right before you touched it. I was feeling all this activity there. And then you touched exactly at that point. And like, whatever's happening in the woo world, like, I don't know if I can define it. I don't know if anyone can. People certainly try. People write books on it and then they argue. And I'm just like, it's kind of just at a certain point, you just have to just look at what the benefit is that you're getting out of it, which is that you're
Right.
unlocking things that sometimes take 20 years of therapy to find. Not saying that you don't need therapy. Absolutely. Please get therapy too. You want to come at it from as many angles as you can.
That's right.
But this is a very somatic process. Energy work is a somatic process where your body is, the intelligence of your body is healing stuff that your mind maybe can't even process or can't even remember. There's
Mhm.
people who have come up, and I've experienced this in CAP, where I didn't even remember the memories that were coming up. And I remember them now, like after they
Right.
come up. But the suppressed memories can come up and they can be healed and transmuted and let go. And so many people say that they feel lighter after a session, physically lighter, like energetically you're lighter. People look like age is lifted up off of them, like, because you're not carrying, you have to realize when you're holding on to energy in the body, emotions in the body, it takes a certain amount of effort and stress to hold that. And so when you let that go, it's like you get to repurpose that energy. You get energy back. that was
Yes.
wasted kind of holding that together. Now you get that
Yes.
back to that's why you can manifest. It's because all of a sudden you have energy to manifest in your life. You have energy to like call stuff in. You have like to do whatever you want with it. It's your energy.
Right.
Why is
Right.
it enslaved to these old stories, other people's shit? A lot of the stuff isn't even our stuff. You know, it's like
You're
inherited.
right.
Anyway, let
That's
me
right. That's right. No, 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 no. That's why you're here, is to like drop these gems. No, I think that that's really, when we're talking about like holistic ways of approaching something, it's like you said, have your therapy, do your journaling or whatever
yeah,
those things are. But also, this is like I mean, it's called activation, Kundalini
yes,
activation, but to help like dislodge
yes.
um, that. And so, one, when I come back to Costa Rica, I'm coming to do a
Let's
session
do it. I'm so
because
excited.
you did a little bit of breath work that
Yeah,
I really
yeah,
appreciated at the Jameelah
yeah.
Day festival gathering. That was so lovely. We did flower crowns, breath work, an offering, in the ocean, which was really special. But
Mhm.
this is like definitely a next level. Like
Yes.
this is, you
It's,
know, a powerful, it feels like almost like when you're talking about it, I'm like, it's like a cleanse or like a
yeah,
detox.
it can be. That's
um
what starts. It turns into something else. The first step is like to clear you out. And once you're
mm,
clear, once you've been coming for a while, or even some people right away, other stuff starts to happen. There's other whole chapters. That's just like the introduction chapters. Usually that it's just kind of getting rid of the gunk so that you
mm-hmm,
can now really activate. Because part of activation is clearing
mm-hmm.
things out. It's like you can't really, it's like an old abandoned house. Like you have to get everything out of there that's no longer serving. You have to lift up the rug, and that's a
That's
process.
right.
And it's different again in each person because we're each arriving in different places. But the reason I did breath work at the Yamaya event and not this is because this, I don't know, it can take people in completely different places, right? Somebody could literally
um
shed, like I've seen people shed inner child trauma being like sexually abused for a long time. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
and they're sobbing hysterically for, you know what I mean, for the better part of that hour, for 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Totally.
Like, so it's like it's not it's more like it needs to be treated more like a plant medicine ceremony. Like a lot of people
I
sit up
understand.
after that and they're like, that was just like an ayahuasca experience, or that was just like when I did DMT or Bufo or fill in the blank. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
all those chemicals that exist in your brain when you're doing a lot of those plant medicines, a lot of the plant medicines either inhibit or increase certain, chemicals in your brain that induce these states. Those
Right.
chemicals exist regardless of those medicines. So
That's
when we're
right.
doing a Kundalini activation, that's what I'm saying. It's like a roulette of all healing modalities because so much can happen. Even if you've never done those modalities before, if you've never heard of them before. I've had experience with modalities that I've never heard of, and then my eyes were moving like in this really
Mm-hmm.
specific way, like for like literally like Tetris for like a lot, like uncomfortably a long like amount of time. I was like,
Mm.
my thinking mind came in and was like, Jameelah, is this safe that you moving your eyes like this for this long? And I was like, I can tell that it's doing something to my brain, so I'm just gonna let it. The energy wants to do that. I found out like a few days later, there's a whole EMDR therapy training people.
Wow.
There's a whole thing. People go and learn that modality. My body again was just doing things. But the breath work is like it's like a cap light. It's like a light version of that.
Okay.
Even Reiki, a lot of people call Kundalini activation Reiki times 1,000. I've heard people say that.
Okay.
So like Reiki is like there's gentler ways in. There's Hakomi practice, which is a somatic practice that I feel like is cap light. I was doing Hakomi. I was like,
Mm.
this is Kundalini energy. They just don't call it that. It be around. Kundalini energy is in a lot of things, okay? Even when you get a
Yes.
good yoga class, you hit that moment and you stand up in a warrior two, you get that like body rush. You feel like your body and your mind kind of doing something different, swirly. That's it.
Yes.
You're activating your Kundalini in a lot of different ways. It's just that usually it's for like a split second. The thing about Kundalini
Mm.
activation is you laying there for an hour. You're giving yourself permission to go into that state for chunks of time, chunks of time.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
it has a lasting effect. But yeah, you have to really respect it, and you have to give it like that's why I train in somatics. It's basically to help people integrate these states afterwards. Because I felt like my training look, it was too abrupt. They just gave us the ability to hold the field, but they didn't really
Mm.
explain the responsibility of activating people and then sending them out into the world. It's like, no, we have to make sure that they, there's these things. And so I think somatics does a very beautiful job of safety and permission and just getting consent all in every step and every way. It helps the nervous system relax so that you can integrate what's happening and you don't just re-traumatize someone, which is what can happen in
Yes.
plant medicine, energy work, all these other things. They're not regulated. So be careful. Be careful. Make sure your people have gotten some outside training outside of them learning the energy or the thing itself,
Yes.
because integration is more important than what happens in the session, babe.
Woo! Please listen. Yes. No, no, no. I have such a deep appreciation for you saying that because as plant medicine has become more popularized, I feel that there's not as many people who are as intentional as you are
Hmm.
about making sure that people are prepared for after the medicine, right? And
Hmm.
really making sure that you're holding space for people, grounding people, and also too like know your practitioner, right? Are they grounded? Who are
Hmm.
these healers? Like are they just like, cool, I'm gonna get this money and
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
and also like are they bringing their own trauma in the space.
Yes.
There's just so many different
Yes.
ways, but I really appreciate what you're just saying about like how you take very seriously not just okay we did this thing, but afterwards
Yeah.
how are folks being able to go back into their lives and
Yes.
like
Integrated.
especially after doing heavy
Yeah.
release work, emotions come up afterwards.
100%.
Things that you might, like tomorrow, something might come
Yes.
up, or
It's not
whatever.
that. There can be a lot. And what you're
Right,
describing
right.
about these other facilitators or other people holding space, you want to be careful. I say the main thing I look for is authenticity. Is when I tell people to work with people who have a degree. And I don't say humble in the sense of like the way the word breaks down and its meaning, but I mean in the sense of people that
Mm,
can admit like I don't know everything there is to know. You definitely want to work with somebody who comes from that point of view, because if you work with somebody who's like, oh, I have the secret, it usually means that they're actually quite early on in they're in their awakening journey. There's this thing that happens early on where you are lost in the darkness and then something happens, either loss or something, you take some medicine or something, you have an experience and then you see the truth for a
mm.
moment. And then you come back down into your lower consciousness and your 3D experience and you may remember that truth. And it's actually quite a dangerous point because it's very like it's a sophomoric point. Remember that word sophomoric? I used to love that
Yes,
because
me
sophomores are
too.
having,
SAT.
right, SAT word. Well, because sophomore, it's perfect. It's like you're not a freshman, and you think
Right.
you know everything, but you actually don't know. And if you look at the people that be telling everyone what to do are the sophomores. The seniors are out there in the courtyard getting high. You know what I mean?
Chilling.
Like
Right.
they, like they don't. The juniors are like, oh, I got a lot of work to do before I got you. But the sophomores
Exactly.
are like, oh, I know this school. Like, and that's exactly what
Feeling
happens.
myself.
Yeah, they feeling themselves a little too much. There's people that have that glimpse and they do see it for a moment and they come back and they think that's it. I'm enlightened now. And then they go and it's
Right.
actually quite dangerous because they are not. And then they're leading these ceremonies. They're leading these people. They do not have the spiritual fortitude to go to be protective energy in the space. Like they do not have the
Mm-hmm.
team. They're not aligned in the way. So it's actually that's like I feel like that's one of the most dangerous points is when someone has had that first big glimpse that their ego might get a hold of it and get their teeth around it, and then they make it an egoic thing instead of actual the beauty of what it is. And if you keep going long enough, that ego will fall off, and it has to because you'll get humbled real quick. You get humbled a lot. You need to work with someone who's been humbled a lot. It's not that they themselves are humbled; it's that they have hit their face in the mud about 15, 11 times. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. I
After they
do.
thought, oh, I got it now. Oh, I healed that. And then and they've done enough times that they know even when they come up out the mud, they're like, only a matter of time before I'm back down there again.
Let's
So right
go.
now, I got something to say, and it's if it helps you, it's great. But I don't need you. Also, if you work with people that need you to like believe in them and need you to do X, Y, and Z in order for them to like be okay with you, that's also a sign that it's egoic and that they're
Mm,
still at this earlier stage, and you just don't want to. The real people who have the real knowledge, they know that it's not theirs. I know that this shit
mm,
isn't mine. You know what I mean? I know that it's limited. It's my limited. I have a piece. I have a shard of a universal truth. And you have it. You have another piece. And when we put our pieces together, it glows and something magical happens. And that's what it is. That's it. It's nothing beyond that. And it's you when you work with people who have that, that's where real growth happens. And when you work with the other people who are pretending to be a little bit more than they are, it's going to either stall or it could actually be harmful.
Yeah, that's really well said. That's really well said. So before we wrap up, I want you to share a little bit. You have something you're working on in Africa.
Yes,
That's all I know. I just know the little
it'd be exciting.
teaser. So I want to know the tea. Let our folks know what you're doing.
So, true to form, so I have launched a training program in this work. So for Kundalini activation and in somatics, the integrative part of what I think is essential to leading this work and being a leader in this work. And we did our first inaugural session last year in Costa Rica. It was so beautiful. People came together from all over the globe and sat with this energy for 6 days and learned how to actually hold this field on their own for themselves, but also for the people in their life, for their clients and future students. And there's also a 6 month container afterwards where we really learn the integrative processes for yourself and also for others. Again, we always have to start with ourselves because we really can't guide people beyond where we have gone. So much of this work is doing your own healing work and then realizing that you're planting flowers along the way. And you can say, like, hey, this is work for me, and that's really it. That's really all we're ever doing. But that is that is enough. That is what we are here to do. And it's very simple, very beautiful. And yes, we're offering 2 more trainings this year. One in May in Costa Rica, again in Puerto Viejo, where there's a beautiful portal. We call it Portal Viejo, of healing
Yes.
the waterfalls, the most beautiful nature. We do a lot with ecotherapy too. That also comes back into my Yoruba roots. I use a lot of ecotherapy, a lot of Yamaya energy, a lot of ocean energy. We go to the waterfalls, we go to the river. We work with because if you're going to work with energy, you need to learn how to work with nature to reset. Because if you're an energy worker,
Right.
the only thing that can reset you after a burnout is nature. Like that's the best,
Yes.
fastest, most effective way. And even if you're not an energy worker, like it is a bar none. If
Hands down.
real shit hits the fan, when I have a client that I feel like is out of my depth, I take them to Yamaya. I take them to the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
We ask permission. We go in. We process. She does it. It's really just about knowing how to tap into resources that are already there. That's all really energy working is doing. You know what I mean? It's more like
I
Aikido.
do.
We're not forcing anything. It is Aikido. We are guiding energy. And so yeah, we're doing that in May 12th through the 18th. Holla at me if you want to come. There's a few more spaces. And then we're also opened up one for Kenya, Mombasa, Kenya, for June, the 22nd through the 28th. We're going to be in the mother continent for the first time, at least in this written history of Kundalini activation, those particular words. No one has taught a public training session there yet, which is such a shame because obviously all this energy comes from Kemet, comes from, Yoruba, comes from like
Yes.
ancient civilizations in Africa and has been kind of adopted all over the world from there and called different names and called different things. And each of them are beautiful and unique, but it's just a kind of a shame that it's not in the motherland. Like, why aren't we doing sessions there? Why is it so heavily in Europe and in the States and kind of these westernized countries? And it's like, well, let's bring it back to the motherland. I have no, I can only imagine how powerful the energy will be there in those lands, especially where we're going in Kenya, that is so rooted again in nature and so beautiful, so much like wildlife and yeah, and it's leaning very melanated as well. A lot of people sign up are melanated. The
Good.
facilitators are melanated. And that's
Good.
also, again, I think there's 5 Kundalini activation facilitators that are Black in the world. In the world, y'all. And 2 of them are coming together for this. So it's like 50%, almost 50%.
Wow.
And we want more. We want more people to come. We want more people to be, from the diaspora to come and to hold these fields of energy. It's needed more than ever.
It
It has
is.
nowhere to go but up as far as I think more and more people are becoming sensitive to be able to even feel this energy. I think the reason why we're just now hearing about these things now is that because they've been going on forever. So now Scion, the other Kundalini activation I'm trained in, has been gone on again since before recorded time. It's just that like the average human being wasn't always able to hold a frequency in modern society, in the society that we know. Again, I think ancient times we were all popping off and doing this stuff all the time. But back from where we know, I think that's why you had to go to the mountaintop. You had to get away from other human beings to like meditate for 20 years in order to achieve these states. And thank God those people did that, because now we're kind of standing on the shoulders of all of that. But notice now people are waking up at a rapid rate. People are much more sensitive to energy. People are hearing their guides, they're being led, they're feeling their intuition. People are, whether they're meaning to or not, people are waking
Yes.
up. And
Yes.
it's scheduled to be more and more and more. We're going in that direction, the age of Aquarius, right? And so I feel like all those people need places to go to dump, offload all of the bullshit that
Mm,
was and that is inside of us, in order to be clear channels of that and not be weighed down by our trauma and our egos and all of that. And so we're going to need more and more facilitators. And I'm not the only one that's been called in this last year to start doing our own training programs. And again, I'm combining things that I think were missing from the training programs that I have done in the past, bringing in the somatic therapy, bringing in the Yoruba, West African traditional healing practices, bringing in the Nakari, bringing in, I have Cherokee and a lot of Cherokee on my mom's side from Alabama and Georgia, and like that's there too. A lot of the ecotherapy stuff that I do is stuff that was taught to me, and that is dying if we're not careful. Like that, a lot of that wisdom is
right.
being almost, it was intentionally attacked. Everyone thinks that the Salem witch trials and that whole witch hunt was about killing women in part, but it was more about the pharmaceutical. It was the beginning of the pharmaceutical. Big pharma,
Mm-hmm.
big pharma was responsible for that. They
Mm-hmm.
were like, we got to shut down all these healing bitches, all
Herbalists
these
and
herbalists.
no, none of those.
Because I can't charge them $50 for this pill if they can go around the way and get a 50 cent,
Right.
that the
Plant something in their yard.
place them in their yard and just take some cotton feet. They want to control the knowledge, so they kill the knowledge holders,
Mm-hmm.
the womb healers.
Mm,
And so when we try to realize that kind of the capitalistic structure, the structure of our dissociation from our own inner wisdom, our own inner healer, we can start
mm-hmm.
to combat it, not from a place of fighting the enemy, but rather just expanding our capacity to hold these spaces and to fight it by learning these and teaching others. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So we're accepting applications, y'all.
Listen, y'all better get in on this. Wow, that is so exciting. I hope you could see how I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, it's so beautiful. Like I remember when we were living together, you were
Mhm.
starting this journey.
Yes.
So it's really beautiful to have seen
Yes, yeah.
you grow in this process and really, you know, just build your
Yeah.
expertise, but own it and make it your own, and also be a leader
Yeah.
in this field, especially for melanated folks. Like
Yeah.
that's such a powerful thing, because
Mhm.
it does matter in terms of feeling a level of accessibility. Like
Yes.
when you see like, oh, wait, Black people do this? Or like, oh, okay, I could go to her. Cool. This is run by melanated people. You feel a different level of safety, or
100%.
that ability to let go. And so I'm just really excited. I'm going to make sure to share the links of how people can, sign up. So how can people find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs now, you can always go to at Jameelah Creates for Instagram. It's the only one I really have time to mess with right now. And yeah, that's a great place to connect with me. There's also our website, energyalchemy.info or jameelahcreates.com, and click Energy Alchemy. And you can go into all of that wonderful world. But yeah, we really, to your point, like a lot of those spaces are not safe for people of color. Ironically, it comes from our lineages. They've mined, it's like a neo-colonization happening, where they're mining the wisdom from, these beautiful ancient indigenous and aboriginal practices, and then pricing us out of them, pricing their descendants
Right.
out. And it's so weird to me. So I made sure that we had accessibility as far as payment plans for ours. Because the training I did, I know so many people took out loans to get to that 10K so that they could come do the training. And we made ours cheaper. We made ours 7K. There's a discount right now for, I think, like less than $6,000 right now. It's 55555. So like we really strive, and then we do the payment plans intentionally so that people don't have to go get out a loan. They want to learn this. We also teach you how to run a spiritual business so that you can earn that money back. I earned my investment back, which was more than, it was $10,000 in the first year less than the first year of doing the business. So it's like I also give structure to that. So you're not just left out on the street trying to figure out how to talk about what this is, how to share it, the benefits, the value. You can stand on the shoulders of those again who've gone before, because we're really trying to start a movement here, y'all. Like the movement is already started. It is happening. And it's like we can either give people a safe place to go, or they'll have to scrounge around and find somebody else that may or may not be abusive, or may or may not be,
Yep.
all kinds of people having sex with people and all this stuff. And I was like, what? Lord Jesus, we got to get in here and have some,
No, like
we got to get in here so we don't look like, just so people have a safe place to go to learn. Because I
that's
can't
right.
tell you how many people have been like, I came to you because you are a Black woman and because I knew I would be safe with you. And that warms my heart. And that is why I do what I do. That's why I'm here. That's why you here too,
That
Janna. I see you. I see you in all your glory, my love.
Ashe. Thank you. I mean, this was such a blessing. I'm really excited for what you're doing. I'm grateful for what you're doing. The world needs you, and you know, for a lot of healing. Things are hard right now across the globe. And so this is such a powerful offering and gift and blessing, and space that you're in the space that you're creating, for us to heal, people to heal as individuals, and to be able to bring that to their communities. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here on Spirit in the Material World. This was such a delight. I'm gonna go practice, try to remember some of the breath work you taught us
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. I have that video. I'm gonna send you the video. I have that video. Did we do was it the
Ooh,
calabash one
yes.
that I did? Did I do the one where you put the thoughts into the bowl? No.
Maybe. I'm trying to remember the breathing, because what I remember from the breathing was like, I felt like heady, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like we had to breathe fast. And I was like, am
I
I
felt like
doing this? At first I was in my head, like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it? And I was just like, just do it. You know what I
yes,
mean? Like, get out of the thinking brain.
body knows. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I'll make sure you get that.
Yeah,
And I have a lot of links to free breath work and free meditations. So yeah, definitely check out those things. And I'm sending all the love,
great.
peoples. All the love.
We'll share that with the community. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you
This
for
was
having me.
Spirit in the Material World. And we will talk to you next time. In the meantime, take good care of yourselves and each other.
Bye.
Peace.